Gentlemen and female gentlemen, it is time for FERRUS MANUS lore, another Primarch. We just did Sanguinius, and that dude's the GOAT. I don't see this guy surpassing Sanguinius, I'm not gonna lie. Sanguinius is so far, and it's not even close, he's my favorite Primarch that we've done a lore dive for. So let's lock in, let's see what we got.
Rest. We were not made to rest. We go on, unflinching, unstoppable, unending in our strength.
Oh, Lord.
The Emperor did not make us for such mortal concerns as hearth and home, vanity or contemplation. We are his engines of war, his hammers, beating out the fabric of it.
And there's 40,000 of them. That's why it's called Warhammer 40,000, because they're the 40,000 hammers of the Emperor.
Existence into a vessel, fit for mankind to inhabit.
My God.
Many of the
that's pretty bad. Not gonna lie. Alright, FERRUS MANUS, let's see what it's all about.
Primarchs of the Imperium are adored for their benevolence.
Right.
But not all exhibit the traits of grace or kindness.
Uh-oh.
Though the traitor Primarchs particularly are remembered for their bloodlust and cold demeanor, there is one true son of the Emperor whose commitment to the Imperium's ideals were ironclad. A Primarch whom, should he achieve his goals and duties without fault, would care not.
Dude, I don't know. I'm so happy I'm doing the lore dives on all the Primarchs. I really like a lot of these guys now.
The subject,
like, dude, Jagatai Khan, actually such a fucking mad lad.
Of the Imperium would see him. A taskmaster and courageous leader, this Primarch led his legion as a harsh but fair commander. Primarch of the 10th Legion, FERRUS MANUS.
Oh,
as the sons of the Emperor were scattered throughout the stars, FERRUS MANUS's pod would land on the feral world of Medusa, impacting on the highest mountain.
That's why they call him the Gorgon. That's why they call him the Gorgon from Greek mythology, because he's on the land of Medusa.
Karashi, the ice pinnacle.
Alright.
The capsule shattered the mountaintop, burying itself deep into the ice. Medusa's surface collapsing.
Bro got himself some Superman level fortress.
Reforming and shifting with the arrival of the Primarch.
Alright.
Growing in solitude, FERRUS would inspect the markings on his pod, embossed with an X.
Oh, right, he's the 10th Primarch.
Realizing it not to be native of the world, Manus would further examine runes and
Wait, was it a Necron tomb world? But I thought Necrons weren't awake in the time of 30k. Right, this is like, you know, this is 10,000 years before the actual 40k timeline. Is that Necrons?
Conductive stalagmites within the chamber in which he lived. His interference awakening a colossal biomechanical worm that lay dormant beneath the chamber.
Ooh.
And after a futile effort to fight it, FERRUS would watch the creature escape and destroy everything within its path. The young boy would swear that one day it would die by his hands. The boy would then observe the world outside.
Hold up.
Seeing humans.
Bro lands on an island as a little baby. He pops out, he sees this giant mech worm, and he's like, I vow, I will destroy it. It's crazy.
In the distance.
Some of them stayed awake like the Silent King. I know, I actually read the Infinite and the Divine book from the Warhammer novel. And I am not going to lie to you right here. That is one of the greatest fantasy books I've ever read in my entire life.
But remaining hidden from their gaze. As years passed,
there's a theory that this is a Necron Catan shard. Ooh, interesting.
Clans of Medusa would discuss sightings of a strange boy, being dubbed names by the many sects and groupings of inhabitants, such as the Cataclysm, the Hunter, the Finality, and the Son of Man. More years passed, and
that's so crazy. Most of them like contribute to society and like end up taking over the world that they live in. This dude was just like, nah, I'm hunting down this giant centipede guy, and he ends up getting like a whole theology about him.
Till the Primarch was fully grown, unscathed from living isolated within the mountain's core, Manus would not join with the clans of Medusa, instead seeking challenges on the planet to test his might and resilience. Slaying many ferocious beasts would prove his raw strength, culminating with his battle against the great silver worm, Asirnov, the metallic beast which he had vowed to destroy. Impervious to conventional weapons, FERRUS would drown it in a river of magma, its flesh melting and fusing with the Primarch's arms. Imbuing the Primarch with his legendary necrodermis-coated arms, with which his future legion would make their namesake. Returning to the clans and tribes, Manus would divulge his knowledge of technology, advancing their stunted civilization and allowing Medusa to prosper under the rule of his iron grip.
So this dude's the Mortal Kombat of Primarchs. So this dude, look how insane this is. Bro rolls in. All right, to this planet. He doesn't want to deal with the warring factions. He's like, I just want to kill this giant worm thing. He ends up fighting, slaying all sorts of beasts. He becomes a mythical figure in the actual mythology and mythos of the world. Dude rolls in, and then after he destroys them, he gets this technology from this mechanical centipede that was presumably there for tens of thousands of years. All right, and this is the craziest part. And then this dude shows up and is like, all right, I have the tech. We're unifying the world under me. That's how it's gonna roll, and no one had any complaints.
Though the clans would fight amongst themselves, Ferrus would never intervene, seeing the competition wrought by their infighting
That's brutal.
to be healthy for their continued improvement. With the arrival of the Emperor, Manus would test his father through battle, leveling entire mountains as they fought. Manus would relish the test of his strength, and willingly bend the knee to a warrior worthy of matching his power. Assuming command of the 10th Legion, the Iron Hands would stand obediently at their father's side, for soon they would be needed to fight the Emperor's Great Crusade. Fulgrim would be one of the first Primarchs.
God, why do they all bump into Fulgrim first?
FERRUS Manus. Initially, Manus would show disdain for his brother, seeing him as a foppish artist wasting time on culture, whilst the reclamation
Fulgrim is fraud. Screw that guy. Based
of the galaxy was at stake. Fulgrim would jokingly refer to Ferrus as the Gorgon, a mythical Terran creature renowned for its ugliness and ability to turn men into stone.
That's where he got the title. And he came from the planet of Medusa. I think that's pretty cute.
The moniker would resound throughout the Imperium as fitting for the Primarch of the Iron Hands, the Legion bringing untold thousands of planets into compliance due to their Primarch's remorseless and relentless drive
so this dude was one of the most successful members of the Great Crusade.
Fulfill the will of his Emperor, purging every weak link in his chain of command or non-compliant world in pursuit of strengthening the Imperium. Fighting alongside the Emperor's children on many occasions, such as the compliance of the human disparate civilization, the two legions would forge tremendous bonds of trust and friendship, despite their unlikely contrast as warriors. Fulgrim had even boasted that he would create the perfect weapon to wield in the coming Great Crusade. As a master craftsman, the Gorgon would not let such a boast go unwarranted, and decided that they should compete to craft the finest weapons.
Oh, right.
Manus forged
he gets a warhammer, and the other guy gets a sword.
The sword known as Fireblade, its edge able to ignite alike to that of the Emperor's own weapon of choice, with Fulgrim forging the mighty Warhammer Forgebreaker.
See, this is one of the legendary 40,000 hammers that are scattered throughout the universe of 40k. And the reason why it's called Warhammer 40k is because they're trying to gather all 40,000 Warhammers scattered throughout the galaxy.
A weapon capable of leveling entire mountains.
Damn!
The two would see their brother's craftsmanship as superior.
And they trade, they give them to each other. What a noble moment. And then they become arch nemesis.
Concede defeat, and in an act of respect and solidarity, exchange their weapons.
That's so wholesome.
Their bond as brothers, now complete. However, during the Horus Heresy...
what a wholesome moment. It's crazy. You know, they both develop these weapons, they concede to each other, they give them to each other, and then they become arch nemesis later, having to clash with these weapons that they made for each other. It's so symbolic. It really is. And to think that FERRUS Manus was considered absolute brutality, and here he had to go up against someone he actually really loved. That's crazy. You know, he's a good Primarch. He's not my favorite Primarch. My favorite Primarch has got to be John Warhammer, which is why the series is named Warhammer 40k, because it's really the story about John Warhammer going around gathering the 40,000 artifacts throughout the galaxy.
Their kinship would be tested and tragically torn asunder.
Yeah.
Fulgrim would be lured by the temptations of chaos, and before the beginning stages of the Heresy, would try to persuade FERRUS Manus to join his cause. Enraged at even the suggestion of such an act, Ferrus attacked Fulgrim, a short duel wherein Ferrus would break Fireblade, mirroring the breaking of the bond of their brotherhood. Due to a hesitation to kill his brother for his treachery, Fulgrim would take the opportunity to strike Ferrus unconscious and claim his own creation, Forgebreaker.
That's crazy.
The Gorgon's elite honor guard of the Morlocks would be ambushed and killed during the deception, injuring their captain Gabriel Santor, letting him watch the betrayal unfold.
Brutal.
Gaining consciousness, FERRUS Manus would resolve to enact his revenge on his traitorous brother.
Brutal. So, he hesitated. I feel like hesitation is the bane of like half of the Primarchs. They're going up against their brothers that felt the chaos. It's people, I think, you know, talk about the Horus Heresy as this mythical war in the history of Warhammer, you know? But the reality is, this is a super personal conflict for a lot of these guys as well. It's wild.
Departing with all
Yeah, John Hammer. That's his full name. John W. Hammer. The W stands for war.
haste, the Gorgon would lead a charge of loyalist legions to destroy the traitor forces before their armies could engage the wider Imperium. With the aid of the Salamanders, Raven Guard, Night Lords, Iron Warriors, Word Bearers, and Alpha Legion at his command, they would quash the traitor legions of the World Eaters, Death Guard, Sons of Horus, and Emperor's Children.
Because the Alpha Legion ends up falling to chaos too. I didn't realize the Alpha Legion was on their side in this war.
Overwhelming force of numbers. The battle would take place on Istvan V, with the loyalist initial waves of Vulcan, Corvus Corax, FERRUS Manus and their respective legions engaging the traitors. With victory assured, should their loyalist inbound legions be at their side, their trust in their brothers would be misplaced. As the second wave descended upon Istvan V, they would show their true colours. With the strength of 8 traitor legions, they would crush the loyalists.
Damn.
Istvan V was no longer a battle.
Brutal
it was a
moment.
massacre.
Yeah, this was the first major. That's crazy. This was the first major point of the Horus Heresy, where ultimately the first major clash. You know, the first major clash between the loyalists and the traitors. The traitors won. The traitors won big time and shattered the entire Imperium. That's why they had to make that, you know, Terra Secundus or whatever it's called, Imperium Secundus. And then they actually managed to just barely squeak out a victory on Terra, you know, in the big finale. But what a brutal, like, for me, it's so interesting. Think about it for a second, right? You have this story, Warhammer 40k. They decided to come up with some backstory for this legendary Horus Heresy. The Horus Heresy is several hundred novels, hundreds of novels written as backstory to the present day. That's insane.
In an act of desperate defiance, FERRUS Manus would command his men to kill as many Emperor's children as they could. The Gorgon would face his brother Fulgrim again in battle, but this time only one Primarch would survive.
Yeah.
FERRUS wielded Fireblade.
I'm pretty sure FERRUS Manus dies here, right?
Forged by his hand for one purpose, to end Fulgrim's life. Fulgrim would fight with the Layer Blade, a demon-infused sword which would aid Fulgrim's strike, cutting the head from the Gorgon's neck.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that from the Fulgrim deep dive. Brutal.
With news of FERRUS Manus' death, Rabute Gilliman of
to think that he didn't even survive to the final battle of the Horus Heresy.
Ultramarines would grieve at the loss of his most favoured brother, with even Horus Lupercal claiming the Gorgon's skull and rambling to its facade, confiding that he lamented FERRUS' choice not to stand by his side during the Great War to end the Imperium. Though later in the Heresy, in a final act of defiance, Manus would be reborn during the Battle of the Webway by the Emperor himself.
Nani?
Fighting alongside the
That's a thing? I didn't know about that.
Fallen heroes of the Imperium.
He's the first Primarch that dies. I didn't realize FERRUS the Menace ends up coming back.
As a blazing spectre against the demonic hordes. The skull of FERRUS Manus would be returned to the Iron Hands. To this day, it rests upon the altar of the Eye of Medusa, guarded by the chapter's stalwart, Hellfather.
Bro. Absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. He died. He's not a perpetual. He's the first Primarch to die. Brutal, man.
They are not my hands.
He just walks out of the afterlife for a couple minutes to beat the shit out of some demons. But he's dead.
Hands. This fact is forgotten by my brothers. Inexplicably, it has always seemed to me. The hands are strong, to be sure, and have created great things for us all. But they are not mine, and that counts for something. They forget that the silver on my arms comes from a beast that I vanquished. It is the mark of a great evil that I ended, and yet it persists within me. I would struggle to remove it now.
Damn.
I will not remove the silver from my flesh because I have learned to depend on it. The fault is with my mind. I rely on the augmentation given to me by my metal gauntlets, so much so that the flesh beneath them is now little more than a distant memory. A day will come when I will strip it from me, lest I lose the power to master myself forever. Already my legion's warriors replaced their shield hands with metal in my honor, and so they are too learning to doubt the natural strength of their bodies. They must be weaned of this practice before it becomes a mania for them. Hatred of what is natural, of what is human, is the first and greatest of the corruptions. So I record it here. When the time comes, I will strip my hands of their unnatural silver. I will instruct my legion to recant their distrust of the flesh. I will turn them away from the gifts of the machine and bid them to relearn the mysteries of the flesh, bone and blood.
Yeah, ultimately, the augmentation is good and stuff, but you have to master yourself, first and foremost. Humanity is ultimate. Humanity is supreme.
When my father's crusade is over, this shall be my sacred task.
Oof. He doesn't make it there.
When the fighting is done, I shall cure my legion and myself.
Oh, holy
For if fighting is all there is,
man.
if we may never pause to reflect on what such devotion to strength is doing to us, then our compulsion will only grow.
Wow, brutal. And he dies. He never gets to do that, ever.
This has been a tale of the great Imperium of Man.
Wow, dude. I want shiny metal hands. But anyway, that's crazy. That's crazy. It's kind of interesting. Like, if you think about it, the dynamic between him and Fulgrim. Ultimately, him and Fulgrim are both people that have been, that they were human, and they have contorted their humanity for some greater purpose, right? He contorted his humanity by imbuing himself with the metal flesh of this giant silver worm. And Fulgrim, his rival and best friend, turned himself into a demon. The major difference is Fulgrim never wanted to go back to human. Never. Fulgrim wanted to shed his humanity entirely and become a demon, whereas FERRUS MANUS, he viewed his humanity as the actual zenith of his personage and hoped to return to pure humanity at some point. And ultimately, that's why Fulgrim fell to chaos and FERRUS MANUS was loyal. And unfortunately, even though he made the correct decision, it's what cost him his life. Cool Primarch. It really is. I think the fact that there are some deaths in the story definitely, it makes it much more impactful throughout. Not every Primarch could live forever. And I actually really like that some of them actually died during the Heresy to actually show you exactly the stakes that we're dealing with. So this was a great video. Definitely subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. And hell yeah. Let's see. Which one's next? Which one's next? Who's next? Who's next? Who's the next Primarch? Let's see. Let's see. Next Primarch is Angron Thalkir, baby. Holy schmorglets. That guy's crazy. All right, let's see it. Bye. Like, subscribe, and this video was streamed live on kick.com/Nuxanor. See you there. Stay weird, man.